I'm going to start with microphone number 3.
Thank you, Nigel. Dennis Doyle, Mayor of Frontenac Islands, as you said, also Chair of Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox and Addington Public Health Unit. Minister Elliott, we have not seen a major health crisis such as Walkerton or SARS since the early 2000s. This is due to the strength of the public health system with municipal involvement, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, Population and Public Health Division, Public Health Ontario, and the 35 public health units supporting 444 municipalities across Ontario. We work upstream to reduce the demand on acute care, therefore reducing hallway medicine and delivering an excellent ROI. Minister Elliott, will you maintain the integrity of the public health system as it is now working very well?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the question. Public health is important across Ontario. We recognize the huge role that it plays. We are hopeful that we won't have any public health crisis emerge, but if such happens, I have been in direct contact with Public Health Ontario. I feel confident that they have the proper protocols in place in order to deal with it, and it's really important for me particularly to work with them closely to make sure that we continue that and that we do have those lines of communication open in the unfortunate event that something does happen. So we do recognize the importance of public health. We are looking for ways to make sure that it can be even stronger, but we will continue to make those investments because we do know that it's important for the health of all Ontarians. So thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And I have asked the ministers to be brief as well so that we can get in as many questions, because I see quite a few of you out there. In a session like this, we may get in as many as 20 in an hour. That's sort of a target. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you very much, Nigel. This question is directed to Minister Clark. I'm Gary McNamara. I'm the Warden of the County of Essex and also a AMO board member. Minister, as one of a past president to another past president, we know that the province is looking for transfer payments on a line-by-line basis, which suggests that each ministry is doing their own review. You know that unlike hospitals and universities who receive province transfer payments from one ministry, municipal governments are very interconnected with many provincial ministries: finance, infrastructure, community safety, health, just to name a few. Ontario communities depend on these transfers to deliver services, often mandated services. Online review will mask impacts if done in a siloed manner. Can you tell us, Minister, if the government is working together, looking at the big cumulative picture of any potential changes and impacts to municipal governments?
You know, I think part of my responsibility as Ontario's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing is to ensure that that we do look at our operations through the municipal lens. And I think you heard what I said at the mic, and I think you know that I truly believe it. I believed it as a young mayor with long flowing curly hair that now has since left me. I think you saw it when I was AMO president as a CAO. Genuinely, we do discuss our portfolios. We are a very close cabinet. We're all good friends. We do have numerous interactions, and we really, truly want to make sure that we hear from our municipal sector. So having that consultation piece, ensuring that your voices are heard. And I want to use Bill 66 as an example. You know, there are going to be lots of people out there that are going to have an opposing view to this government. So if there is an initiative, if there's something that we are doing that you agree with, we want to hear from you. I use the growth plan as a suggestion. If you're in the growth plan and we're on the right track, make sure you comment by February 28th. We need to make sure that positive voices are registered, just like some of the people who may not feel the same way. But I can guarantee you, we do have a great relationship with our cabinet, and I will continue to advocate on your behalf.
Thank you, Minister. I should mention that somewhere in here, I have a prize for the shortest answer from a cabinet minister. I was going to offer one of the distinguished hotel pens here, but I see everybody got one, so I'll have to think of something else in the balance of the time available. Mayor McGarvey, microphone 1.
Thank you, Nigel. Jamie McGarvey, President of AMO and the Mayor of the Town of Parry Sound. And my question is for the President of the Treasury Board, Peter Bethlen-Falvey. Normally, as AMO President, I don't ask questions in the forum, but I am here. There is an overwhelming anxiety and concern from everyone here on the OMPF, on timing and if there are any changes coming. Minister, we appreciate the recent letter from the Ministry of Finance staff saying that we would receive an interim payment equivalent to the municipality's 2018 OMF quarterly payment to support municipalities while the program is under review. Many need it to deal with their immediate cash flow issues. This alone tells everyone that OMPF is critical for the 389 communities that depend on it. Our advice is that changing this critical funding envelope would be a misstep that would cause difficult local impacts. What can you tell us here today? Can you reduce our collective anxiety?
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Really appreciate that. And we understand the anxiety. And I think one thing that I would point out, and Steve Clark mentioned it, and you'll hear it from every minister and every answer that we give, that consultation is a hallmark of this government, that we are listening, we are consulting in every aspect. In my area, when we started in government, we consulted through the Ernst & Young consultation, line-by-line review, by putting out to people what their best ideas were. We received 15,000 ideas, submissions, 26,000 ideas, how we could make government more efficient. So we want to hear from everyone in this room. We recognize that it creates a level of anxiety, but we would ask you to step forward because you are responsible for your municipalities. You are fiscally conservative and responsible, have demonstrated that time and time again. Let me just also expand on Steve's answer and the great question previously about how do you manage silos. And I think that's where some of the anxiety comes from. I come from the private sector where silos in large organizations occur all the time. And our Ernst & Young review highlighted that we should do deep dives in each of the ministries, but we needed to look cross-sectional across all ministries to find efficiencies, to make sure we wouldn't do one thing in one ministry that may hurt another or may be duplicative. And so that analysis is ongoing. The Treasury Board and the team on Treasury Board has performed hours of rigorous review of business cases and those cross-sectional reviews. And so I'm confident, and municipalities is one, because it touches a number of our ministries. Finally, I would just add, so I guess I'm not going to win the pen, is that we all have a role to play in this province to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. We have a $15 billion deficit. I'm highly confident that together we'll be able to do that in a responsible and, as was mentioned by Steve, in a pragmatic way so that we can deliver the services to those who need it the most.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone 3, please.
Hi, my name is Kelly Elliott. I am the Deputy Mayor in the Municipality of Thames Centre, and this question goes to Minister Urick. The proposed high-speed rail by the previous government had detrimental effects to the small and rural municipalities across southwestern Ontario, so we were thrilled with your recent announcement to expand the environmental assessment to include other regional transportation options. However, we have yet to learn what those options will be, and the need for impacted municipalities to adequately peer review the environmental assessment process is still required. In order to assess the impacts, it is imperative that the province provide funding to assist those small municipalities that do not have technical staff available. Can you commit to providing peer review funding for those and for all of the small and rural municipalities impacted along the corridor and ensure that they and all stakeholders, including our agricultural industry, are a significant part of that environmental assessment process?
Thank you. Minister Urick.
Thanks very much, Kelly, for that question. And you're right, we moved into government, and once I was a minister, we moved at expanding the environmental assessment for high-speed rail. the number one instance to do so is it's over a $20 billion project that didn't seek any input from rural Ontario, rural communities, or the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. We felt that was wrong. We are a party that is in a government of all people, urban and rural, northern, southern, eastern, and central Ontario. So we expanded the EA, which they're still writing the technical agreement and information towards the EA, and that'll take a few months. But I will commit that we are going to involve rural Ontario. We are going to involve the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. My parliamentary assistant, Kinga Surma, will be heading up a consulting round with all municipalities that would be affected by high-speed rail. She'll be reaching out to you in this new year coming out. The EA is going to take a number of years to process and go through, and we want to be partners not only with rural Ontario but urban Ontario as well, because transportation issues affect everyone, and we want to make sure that we're investing in the best choice for southwestern Ontario in this aspect. And we want to ensure that we're looking at all the aspects, including bus transformation, highway infrastructure, and also definitely higher speed rail, and seeing how the federal government and VIA can play a role in working that together. We don't want to come to a situation where we're splitting municipalities in half, dividing farmyards without having that conversation with rural Ontario. We want to make this work for everyone. So at this point in time, I'm committing to working with rural Ontario, Ontario Federation of Agriculture. My PA is going to be out on a consultation tour, and then we'll go forward from there.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 2, please.
My name is Mac Bain. I'm a councillor of the City of North Bay, and I'm chair of AMO's Waste Management Task Force. This question is for Minister Phillips. We're happy to see that the environmental plan include making producers responsible for the end-of-life management of their products and packages. This is welcome relief from municipal taxpayers. 3 of the 4 existing municipal diversion programs are in process of transitioning. When will the 4th program, the Ontario Blue Box Plan, products and packaging, transfer to the full producer responsibility? And when will this unfair burden be taken off of our property taxpayers? And when will we see a transfer letter? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mac. I appreciate the question, and it's come up with a few other people today. As you mentioned, and I'll just repeat, our environment plan did come out in November, November 29th, so the 60-day period for comment is actually up tomorrow. So if anybody has anything they'd like to add, you should be doing it online right now. But as you correctly point out, 3 of the 4 areas do have deadlines, and we're working towards them. This was an area where, quite frankly, the municipal community and the Stewart community, it was left in a situation where there was a great distance between them. So we will be beginning some discussions early this year. We will, of course, be setting a timeline, but we'll do that in part of a conversation with AMO, of course, with the City of Toronto, who doesn't participate there, and with the Stewarts. So it's clearly something, where we're at this stage been stalled at 30% diversion. This is an area where those of you who've had a chance to look at the plan will see that we've introduced a number of other options, both in terms of municipal engagement around landfill, as well as the additions of new technologies. So we want to make sure all those things are clearly on the table, and we'll make sure those are on the table, that municipalities are consulted, and then we'll set our date. But that process in terms of the conversations will be starting in the next few months.
Thank you. Microphone number 1, please.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm Jennifer Murphy. I'm the mayor of the Township of Bonnechere Valley and the warden of the County of Renfrew. My question is to Minister Smith in his capacity in the getting rid of rules and regulations capacity. On January 1st, 2019, legislative changes to the Police Services Act requires each municipality to create and adopt a community safety and well-being plan in the next 2 years. This is an example of policies that have been developed for urban Ontario that don't fit with many rural communities. These plans will prove to be very expensive, and in a time of fiscal constraint, this is not a good use of scarce resources. Could this be another opportunity for your government, for the people, to reduce another needless regulation?
Okay, Minister?
Thanks, Jennifer, for the question, and thanks for coming up to the podium, and it's great to see a capacity crowd here, standing room only for the ROMA this year. I can tell you that I am the minister responsible for red tape reduction in Ontario, along with economic development, job creation, and trade. My focus is more on the red tape that is hampering business. It's 380,000 regulations, as you know, in the province. About 150,000 of them affect business directly. As Minister Clark alluded to in his remarks, he's working closely to reduce, with municipalities, to reduce red tape for municipalities. I don't know if this question might be best answered by the minister responsible for community safety and correctional services. If Nigel will allow me, if I could pass it down the line to Minister Sylvia Jones.
We'll see how this works this one time. Minister Jones?
Thanks, Todd. I'll thank you afterwards. There is a regulation right now that we're asking municipalities to put in place the community safety plans. I have heard from many of you in my delegations today concerns with it, but I do want to reassure people that these safety plans are really about making sure that your community understands where the resources currently are and how we can help. This is not an exercise that down the road would lead to our government saying thou shalt. But having said that, we have heard a lot of feedback on it, and I want to assure you we're listening, and I'm going to take that back as we carry on conversations about changes that we would like to make to the Police Services Act, because frankly, I think there are some opportunities for improvement.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. It's not unusual to have a question passed from one minister to another. It's unusual to have two answers, that's all. So what we'll do is if it happens again, there's only one answer between the two of you. So if you think somebody else can handle it better, punt it right away. All right, where did we go? We're back to microphone number 3.
Thank you very much. My name is Rick Phillips. I'm the Reeve of the Township of Tyndonega, Warden of Hastings County, and proud member of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. My question is in relation to the EMS dispatch, and my question is to the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, Minister Elliott. What are the government's plan to reform and improve land ambulance dispatch in Ontario? Municipal governments have been asking this question and waiting on the ministry to take action on dispatch for over 15 years. This is truly an issue of life and death for Ontarians. Will your ministry make fixing dispatch a true and sustained priority? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your question, Mr. Phillips, and I can say yes, absolutely. This is a priority for us. If it hasn't happened over the last 15 years, well, it's a new government now, and it is something that we are taking an active look at. We want to make sure that we can make our system as effective, as efficient, and as timely as possible. So we look forward to working with you, with our municipal partners, to make sure that because we know one size doesn't fit all, to make sure that we can develop a system that's going to work for all of the members of ROMA.
Okay. Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Nigel. Barbara DeBreen, Councillor for the Township of Southgate in the County of Grey. This question is directed to the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Minister Phillips. The option to appeal a municipal class environmental assessment is through an application process to the MOECP staff, and if approved, the ministry issues a Part 2 order on the project proponent. Minister, will you please commit to looking into the Part 2 order process and commit to ensuring that your ministry has a lens on the review to ensure the following: that the applicant is a real person with a confirmed identity, that the intent of the applications are not frivolous and vexatious, that the applicant proves a real and direct impact on prejudice, that the applicant lives in the project municipality or abutting the project municipality, and not an individual that does not live in the community of the project. That prior to the ministry approving the Part 2 order, these issues be reviewed and confirmed, And finally, that should a Part 2 order be issued, that the ministry commit to the review taking a matter of weeks, not months or years. Minister, the reason for this request is to ensure accountability and transparency and limit appeals and Part 2 orders by non-residents, anonymous individuals, or unsubstantiated submissions that would cause undue and unnecessary delays.
I think you've been clear. Minister, that's so you've got more than one part to it. If you care to answer more generally than specifically.
So Barbara, when I said that you should all give feedback on the environment plan, because it ends, the feedback period for the first ends tomorrow, I think Barbara did that just there. So thank you for that. One of the things that we've committed to, and it is aligned very much to our growth agenda, to our efficiency agenda, but also to make sure that we're taking proper care of the environment, is a review of the A process, including the Part 2. Your feedback is welcome, and the feedback of everyone in this room is welcome. Quite clearly, it is taking too long. Quite clearly, the process, which, I mean, Ontario can be quite proud of the process. It was originated, one of the first EA processes in a jurisdiction in North America in the 70s, but it is time for a fulsome review of that process with a mind to many of the things that you've talked about. So this, again, is part of the plan that we laid out in November. It is in the spirit very much of balancing both proper environmental concerns, which I know municipal councils care deeply about, but also the ability to get things done on a timely basis and not have resources unduly lost. We know in our government that time is also money, and that your time and your staff's time is money. So thank you for the feedback.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 1, please.
Thanks for having me. My name is Brent Patrick. I'm councillor with the Township of Bonnechere Valley. My question is directed at Minister Clark. Pretty much, is the government willing to confirm and commit streamlining the development of aggregates and quarries, reduction of about 5 to 10 years, reducing that, just because we're focusing on the streamline of housing, but most importantly, aggregates in our rural areas. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I know that that the Minister Yakubuski's also brought this forward to me. I think anytime we do a streamlining exercise for the development industry, we always have a number of other suggestions on reviews. And I know that Minister Yakubuski, when he's back at Queen's Park, does want to talk to me. The issue with Yak is he's my seatmate, so if he really wants something, he's bigger than me, so but I take your suggestion very seriously, and I know that John wants to talk to me about that as an option for our government.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 3, please.
Yes, thanks, Nigel. My question is for the Minister Jones. My name is Trevor Sipe. I'm the Deputy Reeve of North Huron and the Acting Chair of the North Huron Police Services Board. My question is resulting about provincial appointees with regards to police service boards. This has been a concern for the past, well, at least since I've been a councillor, over 5 years, about the process and the streamlining process about how do those get appointments made. Is there an idea within the government that process is going to be streamlined even more? Because I will tell you, the process isn't streamlined, and it's a very difficult process today.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question. Is the process going to be speeded up? Absolutely. When we came to government, we were told that there were 0 provincial police appointees that had happened in 2018. So we were playing catch up, and we've pretty aggressively been encouraging people to apply. As you can appreciate, with a police services board appointee in particular, there is a longer process because there is a police record check that is included that wouldn't necessarily be the case with all appointees for agencies, boards, and commissions. But I can assure you that we are expediting as quickly as possible, and I would ask you respectfully, if you have people in your communities who would be excellent candidates for police services board members, please encourage them to apply, because often what I'm finding is when I try to fill a position, no one has applied in that community. So that just slows down the process even more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go to microphone number 2, Minister MacLeod, welcome. I understand you had a bit of a stressful trip to get here. Thank you very much for...
I came for George and Eli.
Okay. Okay.
The only 2 votes from Ottawa here.
And I told you people not to ask specific questions. Microphone number 2, please, Graydon.
Thank you, Nigel. Graydon Smith, Mayor of the Town of Bracebridge and Chair of Ontario Small Urban Municipalities. And my question's for Minister Elliott. Minister, we've discussed before that the funding formula for medium-sized hospitals in Ontario is fundamentally broken. And you don't need to take my opinion for it. The hospitals know it. The communities know it. The Hospital Association knows it. AMO knows it. OSIP knows it. The government knows it. This is the 4th or 5th time I've talked about this at ROMA. I know it wasn't a problem of your making, but it can be a problem that you bring the solution to. Can you commit to a solution in the next fiscal year for medium-sized hospitals?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. You're right, it is a very well-known issue. I have heard about that as I've traveled across the province. A number of hospitals have mentioned to me that the funding formula for medium-sized hospitals doesn't work because they don't have the volumes to get some of the other benefits that some of the larger hospitals get. So it is under active study in the ministry right now. We are trying to find a solution. We encourage you, if you have suggestions on what we can do, please be in touch with me, my office. We want to hear from you because we know it's not working. It wasn't something that we came forward with, but it is our responsibility to come up with some solutions. So I look forward to working with you to find that solution so that those hospitals can continue to provide the great quality service that they're providing to the members of all of your communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Robin Jones. I'm the Mayor of Westport. My question is to Minister Sylvia Jones, and I should also share I was a member of the AMO Police Modernization Task Force, and I retired after 34 years in policing in the province. So with the recent repeal of Bill 175, the new Police Service Act, there is an opportunity to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of policing in Ontario. And as you know, Ontario pays the highest per capita policing costs in the country. You partially answered this question before, but I'm going to ask you to go a little bit further. In tabling new legislation, what meaningful steps will the government take to reduce policing costs and improve the efficiency of public safety across Ontario?
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to say be patient, but I can tell you it is our #1 priority in the ministry. We are actively working on, I'm being kind here, updating what were, in my opinion, in our opinion, some pretty serious flaws in the Police Services Act as amended last year. So we are actively engaged in some of those changes now, and I ask that you wait, but you don't have to wait too long. How's that?
Okay. Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 3, please.
Thank you. Brant Burrow, newly elected mayor from Township of Elizabethtown Kittley and councillor by way of that of United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. My question, I believe, needs to be directed to Minister Tibolo, based on my understanding of archaeological assessment and how it dovetails with the provincial policy statement. In our area, based on the research that I've done, there seems to be some inconsistency in the way that municipalities are applying this requirement for individual severances, and it's creating quite a headache for some landowners. I want to make clear I value our heritage and our culture and the artifacts that are discovered from some of these events, but there seems to be a very inconsistent application of the intention of that policy. At least that's my take. So can you commit a willingness to take a look at that? And if we as a society value those types of things, we as a society, I think, need to bear that burden rather than downloading it as winners and losers to individual property owners that are just simply trying to build the homes that we've heard from another minister are so badly needed. Are you willing to do that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, and the short answer is yes. The more complete answer is that we value, obviously, our archaeological findings. We value our history and our traditions in the province, and I think it's important that we get that right. It's something that we are looking at in the ministry in terms of the extent to which our involvement should be there and how it engages with the municipalities as well. So you'll hear more from us with respect to that as we proceed through a review of that process.
Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
Don Smith, Municipality of Sheraton, and a director on the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. Follow-up question to what the other gentleman asked, because he stole my thunder, but it's to Sylvia Jones regarding the police appointments. I realize that there's a process to go through, and we've been dealing with this. I've been involved with this for 20 years. Since the new government came into place, there have been a lot of appointments that have expired. And I guess the question is, can they not be extended until you go through a further review of the appointments? Because it was changed, I believe it's 8 years, 2, 3, and 3 was legislated or brought into being a few years ago. And people have been expired in September, and boards around the province are without.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. I mean, I don't think you can put all of that on the provincial appointees that serve on the Police Services Board. There was a municipal election, so there were a number of vacancies that occurred as a result of the municipal change as well. We are acting very quickly within the ministry to get those appointments filled. But as I say, there is a longer process just because you do have to go through a very structured format of the interview, of the police record check. But I can assure you we have been putting a number through, and we are focusing on the ones that are in the most immediate need.
Thank you. Microphone number 1, please.
Thank you. Name's John Curley, Councillor of the City of Timmins. Question is towards the Minister of Education, Ms. Thompson. Would your government be willing to look at, or if you're not already looking at, amalgamating some of the school boards? There are so many school boards out there, and everybody has to have their own bus. I'm hoping that at least they could do is share the bus transportation or amalgamate some of them. Are you willing to at least look at this?
I'm not sure that that's a question of general municipal interest. I mean, it's a local issue, but...
Well, it's not local. I mean, I know people across the province that 2 people going to the same school, 2 different buses.
Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to debate with you, but just can you make it of general municipal interest?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Hmm?
It's okay.
If you wish to answer?
Yep.
Minister?
Thank you very much for that question. And, it is a general question in the sense that what you experience in Timmins, we heard about earlier today in Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry. So we have to take a look, and there's inequities that are happening throughout Ontario with different boards. For instance, the riding that I represent here in Bruce, there are boards sharing bus transportation. And we need to be ensuring that that equity and that opportunity for savings is realized across the province. So I certainly will be willing to follow up with you directly, and we need to make sure we get it right because, as you heard earlier, our dollars are precious and we have to make sure they're invested wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 3, please.
Thank you very much. I'm a newbie councillor from the Township of Brighton. Municipality. My question is for the Agricultural Minister. So if I get a bit nervous, just get on. Most of our municipalities were built on farmers, and all our small towns, they shopped for years and years. And when they had money, they used to spend it. The government has started rules on the farmers to now that they're just cash crops. Farmers have approached me, some of them have showed me their bills in the last 2 weeks. A young lady that has a sheep farm took 20 sheep to the market to be slaughtered, taken to be ate. She was sold, she got a bill back. It cost her $22.45 a sheep to have them butchered to put them on the market. She lost money. People used to...
Can you make this a question of general municipal interest as opposed to a specific...
It's coming to an interest.
Okay.
Because what it is, of all the farmers in the days where families could eat and go buy a quarter of beef from a farmer, now they can't get that. They have to get it from a grocery store due to large companies lobbying the government. We're saying that we got to shop locally within 200 kilometers. We can't have a farmer's market anymore because we got more rules than Sobeys applied onto us. So how are we going to revitalize our farmers? You said you want jobs. Put money back into the farmers' hands, and you'll create jobs, and you'll revitalize our economy.
Okay. Minister Hardeman.
Well, thank you very much for the question. I realize that that's a major problem, not only in Northern Ontario, but it's in all of Ontario, is trying to find abattoirs that are available to do what they do at a price that they can people can afford to pay. We're working on that because obviously it's been an ongoing succession of the lack of availability, and so we're working with them to make sure that they are protecting the safety of our local food, but at the same time that they are able to stay in business.
Okay. Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Nigel. Nicole Fortier-Levesque, Mayor Municipality of Moonbee. My question is directed to Minister of Education, Lisa Thompson. As you know, well, I know your government is, I'm looking for a word, but it believes in the rural municipalities, and I'm from northeastern Ontario. So what happens is that we have been having lots of closing of the schools, and how can your government ensure us that there won't be no more closing of schools to prevent our children to travel long distance on bad road?
Okay. Thank you. Minister?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your question, and Northeastern Ontario is a beautiful area of our province, and we need to take care of it. And in that spirit, I have to tell you that taking care of it means getting it right. Municipalities lost their voice in accommodation reviews or pupil accommodation reviews, and you deserve to get it back. Another thing that we are going to be doing is making sure that the economic impact of a school closure is also given back to the review processes. Those are two things that the previous administration took away, and that was an absolute slap, if you will. Because in rural Ontario, schools are part of our economic drivers, and it's time that you get a government, which you see in us, that actually get it. In my riding and in my home area, we've actually gone through a number of reviews that have seen schools close, and communities matter. And because of that, I guarantee to you that your voice will be heard. There's currently a moratorium in place, and it's going to stay in place until our reviews are completed, and that we are out there. It's going to be completed in such a way that we're going to be out there and going to every corner of this province to continue the discussion. And if you're willing, maybe we'll come to your community specifically. So I hope Matt Klassen notes that. So thank you very much.
Microphone number 1, please.
Thank you, Nigel. Wendy Landry, I'm the Mayor of the Municipality of Sheraton, and I'm the President of NOMA, and I'm a member of the AMO Board, and I'm the Chair of the Indigenous Relations Task Force. My question today is for Minister Rickford. Minister, will the province, as the Crown, agree to put together a provincial, municipal, and Indigenous working group to create a practical and respectful duty to consult process that would help all of our communities develop relationships? And I forgot to mention that I'm also a member of the Red Rock Indian Band in Northwestern Ontario.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy and Nigel. Just to point out that I am the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, and I want to do a special shout out to Ava Hill. She's here today with a couple of council members. I believe the only Indigenous community, First Nations community here. She's chief of the Six Nations of the Grand River, building relationships with 27,000 strong members. Thank you for being here today. If that puts me out of the running for the Sheraton pen, Nigel, I won't apologize. Wendy, I think we have way more opportunities than we do issues, especially with respect to major infrastructure projects and northern development as a whole, in particular resource projects. Look, I have said before, I was in Sudbury last week, we will look at building relationships that point us in a direction that gets something built. That gets a project built, a legacy infrastructure piece, for example, an environmental assessment process. that points us in the direction to an outcome that creates economic productivity for our communities. I think we're showing that already in a number of important exercises that we're engaging in with specific communities, municipalities and Indigenous communities, preparing them, actually, mobilizing with our resources support to embark on an EAP, an environmental assessment process, or a project to actually get it go live. We think that, in fairness, over the past decade and a half, we spent an awful lot of time at massive working groups and tables and framework discussions. And in many instances, I think there's consensus out there from industry, from Indigenous communities, and from municipalities that not a whole lot got done. And you know some of the projects that I'm talking about. So I appreciate your leadership. I think what we'll find very quickly, especially in the next couple of weeks, is an exercise in pragmatism. As I said before, pointed on moving any process forward with the timelines that they're intended to be completed, and take the next important steps to build roads, to build rights of ways, to build, God help us, more mines in Northern Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone number 1. Or no, excuse me, microphone number 3, please.
Hi, Brenda Noble from North Glengarry, new councillor as well, so I apologize if this doesn't apply to everybody, but my question is for the Minister of Ag and Food. I listened to Jamie speak yesterday, and he piqued my interest when he spoke about cottage laws. And I'm not sure if this is across the board again. In Eastern Ontario, we've had some new rules come in about commercial kitchens, which will and have shut down a few small hometown producers. And I'm always curious why marijuana is legal, but fresh cow milk is not. So I'm wondering. I don't know. Maybe that'll be an edible later on.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is there a strategy or a formula in place for volunteers, farmers, for municipal leaders to ease the ability to sell the farm fresh eggs, the host church suppers, things like that, things that are going to be in jeopardy of some of these new rules?
Well, I think there should be such rules, but I'm not sure that there is. And I think that's the important part that we need to be looking at to make sure that people can buy the farm fresh products. Now, who can buy the eggs, of course, how they can sell them, it's based on the Egg Farmers of Ontario and the quota system as to who can have the farm fresh eggs and how many they can have. And I think we all need to work to make sure that there's enough supply of those eggs being produced by the small farmers that can serve their local communities with the eggs fresh out of the hen house. So I totally agree we need to look forward that we have to work with the Egg Farmers of Ontario to make sure that it complies with the supply managed structure that they have on who can produce the eggs. Incidentally, the people of the Egg Farmers of Ontario are presently not producing enough eggs for all the people in Ontario anyway. I think we should be looking at letting some of our Ontario people eat the eggs that were produced by new small farmers.
Okay. Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Nigel. My name is Alan Thompson, Mayor of Caledon, also acting chair of ROMA. My question is to Minister McNaughton. It's concerning broadband. The challenge we have is we're doing gaps analysis. We're finding a dark fiber that's already there by Hydro One, by the railways, by many other private sectors, Bell Rogers, everybody has ownership. Hydro was made essential 100 years ago and to serve the whole community. We know we need to do this with broadband as well. And what we really need is we need it to be an essential service so that everybody comes to the table and collaborates and shares to get our communities connected. Are you prepared, similar to like Western Canada, to make broadband an essential service?
Great. Well, thank you very much. I had 11 minutes left and there was no question, but I think I met with half the room over the last couple of days with my parliamentary assistant. I know the CRTC has obviously set some standards on this. I can tell everyone in the room, I come from rural southwestern Ontario. I know the importance of getting broadband to rural, remote, and northern communities. And I can promise everyone in this room and all of your communities that help is on the way very soon. We have a very exciting announcement that we're going to make that's going to help Eastern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, and Northern Ontario, and improve life for families and make Ontario more competitive.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 1.
Hello, I'm Bongo. I'm from the township of South Algonquin, and I'm a councillor there. This is a message for Steve Clark. Is the housing crisis that you mentioned mostly an urban issue? And in your steps to address it with your strategy, would you ever consider somehow encouraging all of the people in my generation looking for homes to draw them to rural areas, such as in my township, where there's lots of homes for very affordable prices, and also lots of homes in the neighboring townships around me?
Good.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. As I mentioned in my speech, we just finished our consultation for the Housing Supply Action Plan. Unbelievable participation levels. And really we heard one size doesn't fit all, that the solution in Timmins might not work in Toronto, and using a shout out to where I was Saturday, might not work in Teeswater. So we have to recognize that from a rural perspective, we need to ensure that we have housing policies that allow you to have your people be able to have the home in the right place. And so we definitely, even though we had the 5 themes of speed, cost, mix, rent, and innovation, we heard some tremendous ideas. For example, tiny homes. There were many of you during your municipal election talked about that as a way to keep seniors and first-time homebuyers. I know I heard it in my own provincial election. So we definitely want to make sure that our Housing Supply Action Plan doesn't just fit urban Ontario. It has to include an opportunity for rural communities to be able to provide a variety of housing stocks that really meet your needs. So we need to be responsive to what you need in your community. So great question.
Okay. Microphone number 3, please.
Hello, my name is Nathan Townend. I'm a councillor for Ward 1, Amherst Island in Loyalist Township, and my question is for Minister Elliott. The number of unattached patients in rural Ontario has become critical, and we're now witnessing video conference consultations becoming a band-aid solution. But this does not provide equal care or care of the same quality. What is the government committing to do to incentivize family physicians locating to rural areas and generally address the critical shortage of family physicians in rural Ontario, as this issue not only impacts those currently residing in rural areas, but is also, like schools, a key provision that is a major factor in decisions made by families to relocate to live and work in our countryside?
Minister Elliott.
Well, thank you very much for the question. That is an issue that came up in a number of the meetings that I was involved in today. I know that there are many rural communities that are having a very difficult time attracting physicians. I think that there's many things that we need to look at in order to deal with that. One of the things that we are doing at the ministry right now is doing a human resource review to understand what are the best resources, who are the people that we need in various healthcare settings across the province. Hospitals, long-term care homes, home care, for example, to make sure that we get it right so that people get the right care that they need wherever they're living in the province of Ontario. But I think some of the other things that we need to take a look at is making sure that physicians feel that they have the support that they need in the communities. That is with respect to other healthcare professionals, making sure that they have those resources to draw upon. We also have to update our technology, making sure that we have some digital solutions, but also high quality care within hospitals and other community settings to make it a place where physicians want to locate. Once you can create that sort of hub, you can draw others, but I think you need to get a number of other issues right in order to support physicians to come to communities. So we are working on that diligently at the ministry right now because we know that's important to many of you in this room. We want to make sure that every person in Ontario, wherever they live, has access to high quality, excellent healthcare services. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Minister. Microphone number 1.
Thank you. My name is Wendy Sharapita, and I'm a new councillor in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. And my question may not be as articulately presented as some of the others, but as I was sitting here, it made me think back to a seminar I was in just recently about municipal law. And they were talking about the Land Planning Appeal Tribunal. And I left that seminar more confused than when I arrived. And I wondered if that might have been shared by others in the group, and if Minister Carolyn Mulroney might be able to address whether this is something that you are looking at or open to considering changes or just a review of, because it seems to me that it might be one of those situations where there's some red tape involved, or the process could perhaps be more streamlined.
Minister Clark or Attorney General Mulroney?
I'll let Minister Clark answer.
Yeah, so at last August AMO conference, I addressed this point, and I appreciate you're a new councillor. So LPAT has just been in effect since April 3rd of 2018. And, you know, my concentration is on streamlining the development approval process. So I've spent time ensuring that we have consultations with municipalities, that I have consultations with my brother and sister ministries on ensuring that the permitting process is as streamlined as possible. But listen, I go in with both eyes open, that if I go through a situation where I work with you and you streamline, we streamline, and at the end of the day, you got to wait 24 or 36 months for a board hearing, we're going to look pretty foolish. And we're going to be judged on how much we unlock the logjam that we're seeing now at the LPAT level. So Minister Mulroney and I have had a number of conversations about getting more resources put into LPAT. It's something that's on our radar screen, and I think we've certainly talked about the need to ramp up those appointments so that we have a full complement of adjudicators that are available. And I think in terms of the longer review, you know, that's certainly on my radar screen, but I made it clear that, you know, the LPAT's in its infancy, so I think my priority is not just reducing the burden of reporting to you, it's also working with you to making sure that development approval process to build housing and new development is compressed. So that's
Thank you, Minister.
pretty well
We
what I
have,
said.
we have less than 5 minutes left. For a moment, I thought we were going to get to everybody, but this one started to fill up again. Microphone number 3.
Yes, thank you. It's Ted Smith, Deputy Mayor of the Township of Brock in the north end of the region of Durham. Last year, the federal government and the provincial government both signed on to an infrastructure grant program, and I just wondered when there may be an announcement of an intake for applications for that grant. We've been anxiously awaiting that and have had no word on it yet this week.
Okay. Mr. McNaughton?
Thank you very much for that question. As everyone in this room knows, there's 4 streams. There's transit, rural and northern, the green stream, and recreation community centers. We've done a lot of consultation beginning with AMO, and at this conference I can say with confidence that I think we'll be moving fairly quickly. And the feedback I've gotten is to release the first 2 streams first, so rural and northern, roads and bridges, which is very important, I know, for everyone in this room, and the transit stream. So we're working with the federal government, and I give Minister Champagne a lot of credit. We know that during phase 1, there was lots of concern from municipalities with regards to the red tape, whether it was the application process or the reporting. So we've managed to streamline that, and we'll have word very soon when we'll open that intake.
Okay. Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you very much. Tanya Braybosch with the City of North Bay. I attended the session on the first day where they talked about the Integrity Commissioner, and I apologize, I'm not sure exactly which minister to give this to, but
Probably Minister Clark.
it was probably the most scary presentation that I'd seen. Integrity Commissioners coming in starting March 1st. The costs that are going to come to the municipalities, we in our community budgeted $150,000 for this year. I heard from another community that they spent $130,000 on one investigation. So my question to you, are you just going to leave us to fend for ourselves against the numerous vexation allegations that we are sure to have to review and investigate because we can't afford it?
Okay. Minister Clark.
Well, Tanya, that is a good question. You know, I'll take people back to AMO in August. I had a lot of delegations that mentioned the Integrity Commissioner process. And I have to be honest, I had people coming to me saying the legislation needed to be strengthened. I had people said it should be weakened. I had some that said it should be thrown out altogether. And I had a lot of suggestions everywhere in between. And I think that's one of the consistent messages that I hear is the concern about costs and the concern about how do we handle that frivolous and vexation, and who decides, you know, how it's administered. And the other thing that I hear consistently from our municipal partners is the way that different integrity commissioners that council has appointed interpret complaints and deal with complaints, and how responsive that they are. And some I've heard are very responsive, others not so much. So I think that's my challenge, is there's a number of competing voices. What might be the great path forward is for me to sit down with AMO at the MOU table and actually perhaps do a deeper dive. So perhaps that's something for another day, but I appreciate you asking me in this forum, because there are so many competing voices when it comes to how integrity commissioners are dealt with. So thanks for the question.
Thank you. And this one's going to be the last question. Microphone number 1.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Pam Saney from Minden Hills, part of Haliburton County, and I'm standing here because I'm very concerned about our youth. And I've been talking to many teachers and to many students throughout the Kawartha Lakes area, Haliburton area, and the issue around education of our youth regarding gender equity, regarding issues of mental health in our schools, and diversity in our schools, and the issues of bullying and violence and the fear of that increasing. I come to you not well informed with my question as much as I am informed by the students and the teachers that have talked to me about their growing concerns of bullying in our schools and the mental health issues. So thank you for the question.
So your question is to Minister of Education as to a response?
That would be fine. Thank you.
If you choose to make one. It was fairly open-ended.
It was.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your concerns. We all share them because our entire government is absolutely dedicated to making sure we get it right in our classrooms. We are completely focused on ensuring we have a safe and supportive learning environment, not only for our students, but for our teachers as well. And if you haven't heard, we conducted a consultation over the fall, and we had 72,000 engagements that spoke to mental health issues, bullying, gender identity, as you mentioned, and the list goes on, financial literacy, job and life skills, and the data is so rich. I can't wait to get moving on it because, again, we're going to use that input from over 72,000 people to make sure that we get it right once and for all, because we can't allow anyone to feel insecure. And if they're brave enough to come forward, we need to make sure they have the supports for them as well. Thank you for the question.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your adhering to the rules. I have to tell you, Minister, that there should be 2 awards, an honorable mention to Minister MacLeod for the effort to get here and then not have to face a question. But the prize of a pen from a competing hotel goes to Minister McNaughton for the shortest answer with respect to infrastructure and broadband.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Nigel Belchamber. Did a fantastic job moderating the forum. And I want to take the opportunity to thank ROMA, and I want to thank my cabinet colleagues for a very great ministers' forum today. Let's give my colleagues a hand. So I'm committed, and I think we all are committed to continuing the conversation with you, our municipal partners. Now I want to invite you to the Ontario reception just next door. I have some bad news for you. There's no buck of beer there, so you're on your own. But anyway, thank you very much, and we all look forward to seeing you at the reception.